Hi and welcome to a small video demonstration on the workflow feature of ADManager Plus. Today we will be discussing about how business enterprises can implement an approval-based workflow for their Active Directory tasks. As we all know, Active Directory is a sensitive environment and it is therefore necessary that all changes are carefully made only by authorized people. It is also advisable that changes are double-checked before they are performed in Active Directory. With ADManager Plus workflow, you can propel any Active Directory task through the supervision of concerned authorities. It ensures that all handovers are notified by raising tickets, changes are double-checked, and your Active Directory environment remains secure. The example that we would be seeing in this demonstration would be user provisioning in bulk, which is an important everyday routine in an organization, and see how ADManager Plus approval-based workflow can be implemented to ensure the accuracy and the efficiency of the process. Let's now draw a rough sketch of the user account creation process in an enterprise. A team lead first raises a request to create a user account for the new joinee. The HR associate would approve the request, followed by the administrator executing it in the Active Directory. Above all this, the involved technicians would be respectively notified. Now let's see how to achieve this using AD workflow. The workflow structure in ADManager Plus can be customized to include a requester, a reviewer, an approver, and an executor based on the organizational requirement. By default, 2 workflow agents would be configured in ADManager Plus. In our test case, the requester would be the team lead Morgan, the reviewer would be the HR associate, and the executor would be the system administrator. The workflow configuration can be divided into 2 parts. 1. Configuring the workflow agents, and 2. Defining the assigning rules. Now let's see on how to configure the workflow agents. Click on the Workflow tab. By default, the ADManager Plus workflow will have only 2 workflow agents configured. However, you can customize the workflow structure by clicking on the Edit Workflow link. From the listed agents, check and select the agents you wish to involve in the workflow process. In our test case, we would be having a requester, a reviewer, and an executor. Once you check a workflow agent, you will notice a configure link showing up against the name. This link will help you add users to the workflow structure. For example, when you click on the configure link against the requester, you could add that particular user to the requester list. And similarly, you could configure for reviewer and executor. And once you finish this, please click on Save. You've hence configured the workflow. Any AD user can be a requester, but only users designated as help desk technicians could be configured as executors, reviewers, and approvers. By default, at each stage, be it requesting, reviewing, and approving, all the reviewers, approvers, and executors will be respectively notified. Instead, let's say you want to notify only the intended reviewers, approvers, and executors. This would make the task channeled and the process more efficient. This is where the Assigning Rules feature plays an important role. Assigning rules ensures that the handovers between the workflow agents are notified appropriately, and they also ensure that in a task, only involved workflow agents are notified. Please note, without assigning rules, by default at each stage, be it requesting, reviewing, and approving, all the reviewers, approvers, and executors will be respectively notified. Now let's take a look on how to configure the assigning rules. Under Workflow tab, under Configuration, Assigning Rules, you would be able to see 2 processes listed right here, when request is created and when request is reviewed. There exists a default rule, meaning all the technicians would be notified when a request has been raised. Let's go ahead and add a new rule for when request is created. The rule name is going to be create user request. The rule criteria is going to be action, and choose create users from the list of options available and assign it to the concerned technician. In our case, it's going to be the HR associate, and set the priority level to normal. Click on Save. And similarly, let's go ahead and add a new rule for when request is reviewed. The name is going to be Review Request. The rule criteria is going to be Action, and choose Create Users from the list of options available and assign it to the concerned technician. In our case, the admin is the executor. Set the priority level to normal and click on Save. That's it. You've configured an approval-based workflow for bulk user provisioning in your organization. Now that the workflow setup is up and running, let's go ahead and test it out. The team lead Morgan would sign in using his credentials. Upon signing in, he could either create a single user at a time or a bulk user. Let's go ahead and click bulk user creation. He could manually add users to the list or import it from a CSV. In our case, let's import a CSV file which has a list of users. Okay. It will list all the fields listed in the CSV. Just going to leave it in the default OU, and then a message would pop up saying the request has been created. Once the request has been raised, the HR associate would be notified, and he could take necessary actions. Under Workflow tab, under All Requests, he could review the request raised, create user, request raised by Morgan. He could view the objects, upon which he could either review or reject the proposal. Once reviewed, an intimation would be passed to the admin. Under the Workflow tab, under All Requests, he would have received the ticket raised by Morgan, which has been reviewed by the HR associate as well. In turn, he could view the objects as well to maintain the security, and then go back and execute it in Active Directory. And then request successfully executed. Similarly, you can also scrutinize other AD operations such as user deprovisioning, inactive user cleanup, moving disabled users, and much more using ADManager Plus. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to our other Manage Engine videos.